for taking the time to attend the second EMI seminar for this year. We have two speakers today. We have Dr. Yulia Kharchenko from Maynooth University, and we also have Sidi Ahmed Baraba, who is a PhD candidate from the University of Limerick. Yulia's talk is up first. And in terms of Yulia's bio, she's an assistant professor in applied linguistics and English, TESOL and EMI, at the School of Modern Languages, Literatures and Cultures at Maynooth University. Her research focuses on EMI educator beliefs and practices, multilingual pedagogy, and sustainable language teacher education. She is a co-convenor of the Arqus University Alliance community of practice centred around English as a medium of instruction in higher education. Yulia has previously worked with the EMI Centre at Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, which is a world first that focuses exclusively on English as a medium of instruction and its associated practices. So, Yulia, welcome, and the very best of luck. We're looking forward to it. And yeah, best of luck. Here
Great.
we go.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay, and you can see my screen okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, great. Okay. I'll start with a question. What do you think of when you hear the words English medium instruction or English medium education? And if you need some prompts, you can see what my Microsoft Copilot thinks of it when I ask it about what the importance of English language for education in the world. You can see lots of students of different backgrounds learning something, I assume in English. It looks like a very, I don't know what you think about this image, but to me, it seems a little bit idealized and problematic. There's, of course, a diversity of students, yes, but they appear very, very eager to study through the medium of English. There's also no teacher or lecturer present. And yes, there is small group work, which is good for active learning, but this EMI seems to be very book-based. I don't know if you would have a similar opinion. So yes, there are different aspects to EMI and different challenges and opportunities associated with it. And it doesn't always work as easy and ideal in an ideal way as this picture might suggest. So today we'll attempt to look at these issues and summarize the main themes and the main research approaches in EMI. It is, of course, an ambitious project for just one small talk, but probably it will be a launching pad for your own thinking around EMI. So there are many different definitions of EMI or EME, but the most kind of common and simpler one, it's the use of English to teach and assess the mastery of academic subjects other than English itself in contexts where English, I'm sorry, I've typed that twice, is a second or foreign language. In other words, the students are often speaking English as a second language, and very often the lecturers are also speaking a second language. English medium of instruction is kind of a stretchy term. Sometimes it's applied to secondary school education, but most of the time we talk about CLIL, content and language integrated learning in school settings, and EMI, English medium instruction, in the settings that are tertiary or higher education. So that's the focus for today. EMI has become, of course, a global phenomenon in recent years, and some people call it one of the most significant global phenomena in higher education in Anglophone contexts in this century. The Future of English report by the British Council, which collected data from all regions of the world, has concluded that, of course, English will continue to be the lingua franca. Multilingualism is considered important for individual, societal, national, and economic success. And they have also pointed out that English as a medium of instruction will continue to grow. In fact, English medium instruction is one of their top 8 research themes to be considered. Like I already said, this global phenomenon is associated with internationalization in higher education. It has its roots in the desire to internationalize, attract international students, and increase the prestige of universities. Sometimes it is implemented in different ways. It could be commonplace in educational policies that the top-down countrywide decisions to implement English medium instruction. For example, this exists in Taiwan, Vietnam, Denmark, Bangladesh, and Turkey. On the other hand, some institutions take this initiative of teaching through English, and they, at this kind of meta level, introduce maybe some courses or some particular subjects or degree programs in English. And this exists in other countries around the world, including South America, Europe, Asia, as you can see. Of course, such major shifts in education will have political, societal, economic, cultural implications, and also pedagogical implications. So there's lots and lots to think about when you think about English medium instruction. It is acknowledged that the practice of teaching through English has advanced so fast that the research has been unable to keep up. So there is a gap between practice and research. So we have to ask ourselves, to what extent is teaching through the medium of English actually backed up by research, and vice versa. Policy implementation, this EMI policy varies very widely, but also due to the research context. So it's a very wide field that varies in terms of level of analysis, like I already mentioned, the macro and national level, the meso-institutional level, and the micro level of the classroom. The research also varies greatly in research tools. There's been studies that analyzed the policy, that looked at stakeholder perceptions, at the teachers and learners and at admin staff understanding of EMI. Other studies observed EMI in practice and in interaction. Yet others have done content analysis and so on and so on. There's a book that I'm referencing at the bottom of the slide that has sample studies from all over the world at these 3 different levels of analysis. And that's higher education context. Research settings are many. There was a famous seminal systematic review of EMI by Maccaro and colleagues in 2018 that looked at education settings. And that included, they included primary school, secondary school, and tertiary settings. There has been since lots and lots of publications, especially in like a whole book form, on different regions of the world. So you can see publications coming out from Middle East and North Africa, Asia Pacific, Southeast Asia, from Europe. There have been lots of researchers focusing on particular areas of the world. And since 2022, a journal of English medium instruction has been in existence. So again, this speaks to the importance of this topic in academia and in tertiary education. And of course, last year, the Routledge Handbook of English Medium Instruction in Higher Education was published. And, you know, once there's a Routledge Handbook, that topic is really becoming important. Just as a pointer to our future talk, in June, we have Francesca Costa and Cristina Mariotti from Italy, who will talk about how they researched EMI in interaction in the Italian context. So look out for that. We'll send out information in due time. So what are the research themes? I kind of tried to summarize them into very, very broad categories. And the first category I'm thinking of is the stakeholders. So the people involved in English medium instruction. Of course, the teachers, the learners, but also other professional staff at universities. In this area of research, researchers have looked at conceptualizations of EMI. In other words, how do people perceive EMI? What do they think it is? How does that affect EMI learner and teacher identity? You can imagine the implications of starting to teach in English instead of your first language at some point. And you can imagine how that changes you as a teacher, how it changes you as a learner, what kind of support structures need to be there and how they need to change in the professional services and library academic services. EMI affects the entire infrastructure of a university. Then, of course, a big area is the teacher practices in EMI. How we teach in a second language is different how we would teach in our first language. So there's lots of opportunities to actually look at how teachers deal with multilingual students in their classroom, multicultural students in their classroom. Excuse me. Another area of research has been student experiences in EMI. While students are generally attracted to English medium programs due to their international prestige and the opportunity to study through the all-important medium of English and meeting students from other areas of the world, it can still be a very challenging experience psychologically. And Marta Kopinska is one of our speakers that's coming up, has researched in this area. Of course, assessment in EMI is another huge area that changes with the transition to English medium. What are we assessing? Are we assessing content knowledge and the subject knowledge, or are we assessing language acquisition? It is assumed in EMI that language learning acquisition will kind of take care of itself. We know sometimes that it's not the case. And then there is a whole other wider array of issues in teaching and learning in EMI, and you can check out Richards and Pun volume for that if you're interested. They have talked about a lot about the impact on English learning and what are specific strategies that EMI teachers are using. They do note that there is impact on content learning, that somehow content learning can be simplified through EMI, but of course there's more research needed in that. There's a plug-in for Marta's talk. She's going to talk to us on the 15th of May on EMI student experiences, on effective factors of classroom interaction, and how she used qualitative research methods to research that. Language use has been another big area in EMI research. It is often assumed that because it's an English medium instruction, that it is going to be an English-only medium instruction. But of course, in reality, it doesn't happen like that in multilingual classrooms. In fact, if there is any argument for multilingualism in the classroom, EMI is probably the best setting for that, because both the students and the teachers, the lecturers, are multicultural, multilingual speakers. There have been different attempts to kind of classify the types of pedagogies and how what the approaches are to different language use in EMI. So you can see Sahan, Rose, and Macaro have written I think it's a paper on that. And there has been a lot of research on translanguaging in EMI. I think Sid is going to talk about this later in his talk as well. Translanguaging is this perspective on English language use that is flexible, multiple, dynamic, uses all sorts of language and non-language means that are available in a speaker's repertoire. So it's quite a flexible approach to language learning and language use. And that people who subscribe to the idea of translanguaging in an EMI classroom would very eagerly say that EMI does not mean English-only medium of instruction. And of course, it would be remiss not to mention the staff professional development. You can imagine a university change into a different language, or certain degrees or subjects change into English, that there will be necessary preparation of the staff necessary. Some research has looked at the professional development needs of EMI researchers and in-service lecturers who need support switching to EMI. There's a very nice, actually bilingual systematic review by Dang and colleagues in 2021. I've bolded it in case you're interested. They looked at articles in Chinese and English to analyze what EMI lecturers might actually need. It's an emergent area and an area that will require quite an urgent attention, I think. Then there is interest in the professional services staff in English medium instructions and what they need to interact with international students. So remember, if EMI programs attract international students, we need to not only have lecturers, but we have all the support infrastructure that is able to talk to them in hopefully English and help with all other matters related to studying at a university that are not just purely academic. So there is an interesting article by Isabella Delgado who looks at the needs of professional staff when designing an occupational purposes, English for occupational purposes course, like an English for specific purposes for professional staff. And a little bit of advertising from Maynooth, we will be running a course like this for Arqus as well later this year, I believe. Mark will correct me if I'm wrong. Then another area is collaboration with English language specialists. A lot of EMI lecturers don't view themselves as language teachers. They view themselves as content lecturers, content teachers who just happen to be teaching in English. But as linguists, we know that language teaching and learning the content of the subject are inseparable. So there is a lot of opportunities for content lecturers to work together with English language specialists to see how they can probably integrate the two. Some would argue then, well, EMI is not clear. Why would we work on content and language integrated learning? But there's definitely a lot that content lecturers, content teachers can learn from English language specialists. For example, how to provide clear instructions, how to give effective definitions, how to conduct concept checking, how to encourage small group work and active learning in their classrooms, and so on and so forth. There have been some attempts to create tests of proficiency for staff. So I've included a link there. I think it was a university in the Basque Country that has developed their own tests. Just as an example, it was interesting in the fact that it was mostly based on the English language proficiency of staff rather than the pedagogy of how to teach through English. So for me, someone who works in professional development for teachers, I would also work to see what their understanding is of EMI pedagogy, not just the content or without focusing on the language only. Here at Maynooth, we have 2 university micro-credentials that you might have seen. The first one is on improving English medium education practice, which deals more with kind of the general approaches and reflection on teaching through English. And the second one is Advanced English for EMI Classroom with the focus on English language proficiency of academics. And as I said earlier, we have also got our application for Arqus EMI Community of Practice approved. So we're very looking forward to working with our colleagues across the Alliance in promoting research and promoting professional development for staff across Arqus. If you're interested in joining EMI Community of Practice, just send me an email and I'll gladly include you on this. And Mark is also the co-convenor of this community of practice, so he's available as well. I'm reaching the end of my presentation in about 5 minutes. Other areas in EMI, kind of connected to EMI and are emerging, is the intercultural development in EMI settings. As I said earlier, EMI settings are multicultural and multilingual, so we can't ignore the fact that a degree of intercultural competence is required in both from the teachers and the learners, both at the commencement of the EMI course, but also it needs to be developed during the EMI course. So Clive and I will be looking at that this year, I believe. There's also convergence between EMI and English as a lingua franca perspectives. So that originally they are kind of separate research areas, but they're moving closer together. And of course, there has been a lot of critical and social justice perspectives on EMI. There have been some challenges in EMI that can be perceived as elitist or exclusive, that does not cater for individualities of students, that somewhat reduces the quality of teaching, and so on and so forth. Two more talks coming up in our series is in April. We have Professor Michael Byram, who you might know from his work in intercultural communicative competence, of course. He's a worldwide expert who's going to talk to us about his perspective on intercultural communicative competence in EMI settings. So that's coming up in April. So we're very excited about this talk, and we'll share the information when it's available. And another one is by Maynooth's own Arndt Witte, also a professor in intercultural competence, who's done lots of work in this area, who's going to talk to us in July. So we'll let you know about that. Looking at the research methods, if there haven't been that many systematic reviews lately, so again, opportunities for research if anybody's keen. You probably need a whole research team for that these days, given the number of publications. So the 2018 systematic review that looked at 83 studies in 20 years from 95 to 2015. And by the way, about 80% of those studies came after the year 2000. They identified quite a mix of quantitative, qualitative, and mixed approaches in EMI, which is probably not surprising given the themes that we saw earlier. And then the following systematic review by Velez et al., which was specifically in higher education, in 2020 also looked at similar dates, but not as a wide span, and 51 studies. Again, they found very similar breakdown of studies. You can look at these two systematic reviews if you want for more information. There will be just too much for me to summarize right now in this short talk. But yes, it seems that another systematic review is due in the next year or two. I'm not sure if anyone's working on it right now. Of course, there's been lots of publications on research methods in EMI. So the whole textbooks have now been written on research methods, qualitative, quantitative, and overview of research settings. You can see the names are the same on all these three books. And we're lucky we have Samantha Curl talk to us on the 6th of March, who's written a lot on research methods in education. She's in the University of Bath, and she'll talk to us about quantitative methods and insights in EMI. So again, look out for that. And finally, there was also an approach to EMI that helped. It's called a road mapping framework, developed by Emma Duffus and Ute Smith. Their approach was to kind of conceptualize EMI and classify programs. And I won't talk too much about the road mapping framework because I won't do it justice. And Emma and Ute are talking to us next month, I believe. They will tell us about this conceptual framework, which is both a methodological tool and an analytical guide to examine policies and programs. So they will be talking to us on the 20th of February, which is the next scheduled talk. And they will talk about the latest developments in this framework. So hopefully I'm okay for time. I want to leave you with these two reflection questions. And I know we'll take all the questions in the end, but maybe you can think about this. What EMI issues or topics are relevant in your setting? And what areas of research would be applicable? And of course, which ones you'd be interested in personally. Perhaps you're more interested in the learners' perspectives or lecturers' perspectives or academic staff perspectives. There's a lot of research, areas of research available there. You have my email address for later on if you want to send emails or ask questions. I'm always happy to talk about EMI. I have lots of references. I'll share my slides later on so that you can have access to all of this. I'll stop sharing for now.
Yeah, Yulia, thank you very, very much for that. That was really interesting. And thanks for taking the time to do that extensive list of references, which we'll all be having a good look at.